I want to talk Sarah J. Maas.
Wait, who's that?
She's the author of A Court of Thorn and Roses.
Oh, yes.
I want to talk Sarah
Speaking
J.
of
Maas.
romance.
Her books, like, just this year alone, have sold more than the top 10
I
new
know
books.
nothing about her. She writes like fantasy,
Yeah.
romance.
Romantasy, yeah.
Yeah, romantasy. I think it's like her books, and then the Fourth Wing books have been the like leaders of this
And, like,
movement. Fourth
everyone's
Wing is like
TikToking
dragon
about it.
sex,
Yeah.
and hers is like
Dragon
fairy.
sex?
Yeah, hers is like fairy smut.
Yeah. Oh, okay. And Fourth Wing is Dragon Sex.
At the airport last week, a couple weeks ago, where I was like, is it time for me to just like buy this from the airport and like snarf it down on this trip? And then
Yeah.
I opened it halfway and I read one page and it was like all these like fucking like fairy names, like weird
Legolas.
like LOTR level names, and I was just like, no, I can't do this. Like I'm just
And were they
bad with
banging or
that.
were they?
No, I couldn't even get to that part because I was
okay.
just like, I just see a bunch of names I'm never going to be able to remember, so this is not for me.
Wait, why is it acceptable to like read a smut book, which is what those are basically, on the plane? But like you can't, if a dude can't bust out an OnlyFans, those are equivalent for the genders. It should be as inappropriate.
Well, I think you can. Is there dude erotica that you can read?
Dudes are just
Dudes
looking
are-
at porn on
yeah.
their phone.
yeah, we're not
Yeah.
in line. We don't
Yeah.
need the
Like,
line
they don't need the
things.
imagination.
I think it's like a like a neighbor, like who's sitting next to you. Be mindful of your neighbor thing. Like
Yeah. But see, my
Yeah.
my exposure to this whole multiverse, let's call it, A Court of Thorn and Roses, happened very organically. You know, like 7 or 8 months ago, a friend of mine told us, like, it was at a dinner party, and she was like, oh, I'm reading this, like, I'm kind of embarrassed, it's just horny fairies and it's smutty, but it's fun. And I'm like, okay, great. And on the L train, like, everyone's reading it.
Yeah.
I think that's not. I think
great.
that should not be acceptable. They're all getting their rocks off on the subway.
No smut on the subway.
No, I know what you're
it's
doing.
completely allowed. Fuck it.
You're
I think it's great.
creaming your panties right now.
Damn it. Oh my God.
Dudes can't.
It's all about the buildup, you know. You probably go home and
Yeah.
read the critical page then.
I'm weirded out when dudes are looking at like bouncy asses on the train next to me.
Yeah.
Should be as unacceptable.
Yeah, I am with you here on maybe that is a double standard.
I looked into this, and apparently there's just been this explosion post-pandemic. And I'm kind of curious, like, do you have any friends who read this stuff? Do you have any firsthand exposure to it? Like, how and why has it become so popular as like a side effect of the pandemic?
I have not read it. But I've had like a lot of my girlfriends, like very smart, professional, successful New York women, are like, dude, it's so nice that you just turn your brain off
So
and
this
you
is
like
just
finish a
reality
book in
TV
2 days
in lit form.
I think
Emily in
so.
Paris.
It's very
Horny
yeah.
Emily in Paris.
I mean, I'm sure like my theory is probably like, because when I first heard about it, I was like, this is like the kind of like smutty fan fiction I would read on the computer in middle school at like Quizilla.com, where it was just like, oh, and then the fairies did what? Like I was just like, oh, it's almost like it recalls that mindset to me when you're kind of like sex and like magical beings all are very like foreign to me, and
Right.
so why not like combine them and try to understand them at the same time, you know?
Yeah.
Like they're both just like totally on a different planet, and so
It was just like Shrek took Donkey out back. That was what you were reading.
I read so much like smutty Harry Potter fan fiction, you know, where like wands were used for various things.
When you were a kid?
Middle school.
Middle school.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
you were reading them concurrently. So you were as the books were coming out. You were like,
Yeah,
all right,
exactly.
I need some more on board.
Yeah. So,
So
that
would
was
that
definitely like
affect your
a
future reading of it. You're like, this isn't as good.
I think it was almost like I would read the real books for like the world building, and then be like, okay, now I know what's going in with this like fan fiction.
Or you just read the books so you can understand the smut.
Oh yeah, and then so I could write my own, you know, so I could
Honestly,
know what was
I
going
think it's
on.
a great hobby, like getting into fan fiction.
I mean, wasn't that the
Like-
50 Shades of Grey was Twilight fan fiction, right?
Yeah, I mean, I wrote my own fan
I've
fiction.
turned around. I did this podcast a couple years ago called Normal Gossip, and in it, someone described this story about like fan fiction, and I was a comedian on it, so I was just supposed to like have a lot of hard and
Like
fast
reactions.
opinions
Very
and like
hard.
reactions. and I just said like I just shat on fan fiction, and I got so much hate mail.
Oh, I'm sure
from people.
you did.
I got
yeah.
so many DMs from people who are into fan fiction because I said if you're into fan fiction, you're a loser.
Yeah.
And I don't want to.
Not all of us were on the football team
I've
in
turned
high
around.
school, Brian.
I'm like, you know what's great? It's great.
But fan fiction, there's been a complete triumph of the fan fiction.
Yeah.
Like our whole culture, like the media that we get now, the movies,
yeah.
they're all just fan
It's all-
service
yeah.
and fan
That's true.
fiction.
That's a great point.
So
Uh-huh.
like you can't complain anymore that you're hated. Like there's a coup.
Yeah.
Like the fan fiction nerds won
yeah.
completely.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean-
it's just lip service and
It's either
filling their
Marvel
fantasy.
Cinematic Universe or
Yeah.
the Dime Square Cinematic Universe. It's
Yeah,
all
those
fan
are
fiction.
those are our choices.
I even had to explain to someone like last night or something where because they didn't know what Wicked was, and I was trying to explain. I was like, oh well, it's like a musical based on this book that's based on the actual like movie and book that
Yeah.
like Frank Baum, Mr. Baum wrote. L Baum.
Let me.
What's his real name?
Mr. Oz.
Yeah, the real Oz.
The real who wrote Wicked? Gregory Maguire.
No, who wrote
No.
The Wizard of Oz?
Oh.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like Wicked. The book was based on the Wizard of Oz, and now it's like its whole other juggernaut. But it's like
it's like a prequel.
it's a
right?
prequel.
L.
yeah.
Frank Baum.
L. Frank Baum.
Wow,
Yeah.
good pull.
Yeah.
I knew it wasn't just Frank.
Okay, that was Middlebrow.